Jon
Okay.
Friesen,
Hey,
welcome
how's
to
it
the
going?
podcast. It's going
Thanks.
good. I have a weird, a strange feeling of pride when I heard that you got a job at DigitalOcean, and it doesn't really make any sense because we don't know each other well. I did not help you get this job whatsoever, but for some reason I have a strange sense of pride that you are now working at DigitalOcean. It must be because we came from the same town, from the same high school. I think that's it. Even though we had very little interaction, I sat back and I thought about it. I don't think we had a single class together in all of grade 8 to grade 12. Can you think of any?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either, because I knew who you were, but
Mhm.
I really don't think I ever had a conversation with you. It's very strange when you think about it, because our grad class was what, 300 people, 350 people, something like
Yeah, it
that.
was pretty tiny. Like the school itself was pretty small, like in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, very, very small high school. But yeah, we came from a small town, and here you are now working at DigitalOcean.
I
Look at
know,
you
right?
go.
Crazy. Absolutely insane.
It is. It's great. And DigitalOcean, like, there's only a few companies that I like. If I were to get a job, those are the companies that I would try to get a job at. And this is not me asking for a job. This is me being completely honest. Square is one of them. I know a couple people who work at Square, and I think that the things that they do, the way that they do it, I think it's just it seems like the right way. And with DigitalOcean, I don't know anything about the internals or anything. I'm kind of just fantasizing that it's a nice place to work because their product is great, their documentation is great, their customer service is great. Every single interaction I've had with them has been great. So I'm fantasizing that it's also a nice place to work. So hopefully you could tell us a little bit about that.
For sure. Yeah. No, I mean, it absolutely is an amazing place to work. For me, like maybe this is jumping ahead again, but yeah, this was like working at DigitalOcean was a pipe dream, and it came true, and it's dramatically changed my career trajectory and what I want to do with my life. So
So you work at home, right? You've and not just because of COVID, you've been remote always.
yeah, well, since I joined DO, so I joined
Right.
DO in July 2019,
Hmm.
so it's just over a year, and since then I've been a full-time remote worker. We're based in, or they're based in um, New York, and they have offices in Cambridge and in San Francisco.
Hmm.
Um, and my team is spread all over the world. We have from Berlin to Ottawa to the West Coast.
Cool.
So,
Looks like Rob has joined us. He was late. Hey, Rob.
hey,
Hey,
Rob.
hey, sorry guys.
No problem. This
How's
is
it
my
going?
this is my co-host Rob. He has a podcast on his own, but I interviewed him a couple of times. He interviewed me. We decided that we fell in love, and now I'm having him as a co-host on my podcast.
Awesome. No, great.
That's a
So
fairly accurate story as well.
I'm not kidding at all. That's exactly what happened. So
Awesome.
yeah, Rob. This is John. John. This is Rob.
Yeah, good to meet you.
I don't know if I told you, but I actually went to high school with John,
You
and
mentioned, yeah.
yeah, so he's just telling. He just told us about how he's been working remote since last year in January when he got hired by DigitalOcean, and his kind of office or the people he works with work in New York, and he so
Okay.
far said nothing but good things about DigitalOcean so far.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool.
So now you're all
Yeah.
caught up.
There you go.
So we went to high school together. I didn't, like I said, we have very few interactions, but you went to the same university I went to too also, and I also did not have any interaction with you. I did not know you studied computer science. I knew nothing about you, and then suddenly I saw that you were working at SAP. So how did that like trajectory happen? Like I know our school did not have anything going on with computer science really. So like
Mhm.
what did that look like for you? Like how did you even get into programming in computer science?
Yeah, I mean, UFV, so our university doesn't have a computer science degree. So, and I don't have one. I started going to UFV for CIS, and that's actually what I finished in as well. And they have some minor software concentrations. They're not even full minors, but they're just a little bit dabble in software development. But generally, that's not a focus of people who go there is becoming a software development or developer. Um, what ended up happening is early on in my degree, I joined I guess it was like a webinar for a local company who was hiring university students to build out one-time password apps, mobile apps. And this is before like,
Mobile
this is
apps.
Yeah, mobile apps. So like they wanted Palm OS, they wanted Android, they wanted Windows something, Windows Phone something. It was, I can't remember the name of it. I wasn't qualified to join that, but I made it my goal to be like, hey, I want to work for this company and I want to work for this CEO. And they were very small at the time. I think they were under 10 people at the time. Anyway, the following year, I had a couple of core computer science software courses like algorithms under my belt, and so I started applying for co-op jobs there. And that's where it really kind of took off for me, is in terms of getting software development experience and becoming a software developer. So I started out as in QA, but I made it very clear that I wanted to be a software developer, and I was lucky enough that the CEO, who later became the CTO as we grew, kind of mentored me into that, and that was incredible. Like, brilliant guy. He mentored me all the way through, and then about 2 years into that, we were acquired, and that was great. It was very cool. We were acquired by a big IT company in the US. Went from 15 people to 400. And then a year after that, I was getting, I guess, a little complacent. I was getting a little bored of what I was doing, and there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity in the Canadian office for me to move up. And luckily enough for me, a recruiter at SAP reached out to me and said, "Hey, why don't you come for a technical interview?" And so that's kind of like how that's how I left our small town and went to Abbotsford. Or went to Vancouver.
Right. So, okay, a couple of things there. So you were studying computer science in university, and while you were doing that, you for whatever reason thought that this company was going to be a cool one. Is it called Scorpion Software Corp? I'm looking at your LinkedIn. Okay.
Yeah, Scorpion Software.
Okay. And so just stop me if I say something wrong. So you wanted to do this, you thought it was cool, you loved the company, what they were doing, you loved the CEO, and you said, that is what I want to do. I want to go work for them. And then you just started, shooting emails to them, or what? Like, how did that go down?
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. Actually, it's a little bit of an annoying story.
Okay.
So what I ended up doing was I applied for a co-op, and I got an interview, and I went in, and they shot me down within like 20 minutes. The hiring manager there, just like right out the door. And I was pretty upset. Anyways, and one of my favorite professors at the university, I said, "Hey, like, what did I do wrong?" And he's like, "Oh, it sounds like you just didn't get in front of the right people. Send me a copy of your resume, and also send it to this guy, and also send it to this guy." And sure enough, the next co-op term, I got a call from this company saying, "Hey, can you come in for an interview?" I was like, "Perfect." So I go in, and the CTO or the CEO at the time, he's sitting in this conference room waiting for me, and I sit down, and he introduced himself, and I say, "I know who you are. I saw this webinar 2 years ago now, and it inspired me to work here." And he says, "Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I have 5 or 6 copies of your resume on your desk, or on my desk. Why are you so intent on working here?" Anyways, we got into it, and he said, like, "You can go through the interview process. We can hire you on as a co-op student. It's testing, it's QA. You're writing automated tests. But if you double down and you focus on learning, then we can probably help you get to where you want to go." And that's really where, for me, I realized, like, okay, like, getting a degree is not going to be, the golden ticket. It's you got to hustle. You got to
Right.
Maybe hustle is a bad word. I hate that word. You got to double down and hone your craft. Maybe that's the way I'd like to phrase it.
Persistence, commitment, yeah, things like that. Yeah, no, definitely not getting any sort of credential doesn't seem to be the answer. It's going to get you the interview, but that's as far as it'll get you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, even then, like I said, like, my degree is not a comp sci degree; it's a CIS degree. And so, later on in life, when I got an interview at SAP, it wasn't because I had a degree. It was more or less because I had, experience on my LinkedIn, and my resume said, "Hey, here's some of the cool projects I've done." And that's kind of what led me to realize, like, hey, like, you got to do stuff to progress.
This is the classic story. This is the advice that everybody gives and very few people listen to. It's go and do things and show people that you're doing things, and things will happen.
That's yeah. I mean, something that I hear over and over, which it may be an unpopular opinion, but it's like, people talk about, oh, uh, you grow the most outside of your comfort zone and that kind of stuff. And I think that's absolutely true. But I also think that if you stay outside of your comfort zone for large periods of time, then you don't have the ability to hone and to perfect and polish those skills you're picking up. So like, okay, go take jump into a boot camp or do some hard course or, grab a textbook and start studying. But then after you've been out of there and you're uncomfortable for a while, take those skills that you've learned and start applying them in a comfortable way. Like just be like, hey, okay, like I know what I'm doing and feel like a pro for a bit and then jump back into it. It's kind of ebb and flow.
Right. Gotcha.
That's a very good way to put it. Yeah.
So SAP. So SAP, a recruiter reached out to you. That was how it went down. Classic. There's always those recruiters out there. I've heard very few stories where a recruiter reaching out to someone turned into a good thing. So that's great to hear. And what happened there? You went for the interview and boom, bang, you're in, or what? How'd that go down?
I'm not totally sure how things happened in my particular situation. I was at a meetup in Vancouver, which I rarely went to just because it's such a pain to get into the city and to find parking. And also I couldn't really afford parking at the time. And I'd met a manager, like a technical manager, who was from SAP at this meetup. And I don't know if they referred me or not, but I felt like the process of me interviewing there went fairly quickly. So they sent me an email and they said, let's chat. We had a quick call. And that was like your basic, recruiter, just making sure you're not crazy and you're eligible to work there. And I came in for the technical and I had these, two awesome devs sit in front of me. He says, here's the deal. We're going to interview for an hour. And then if we give the hiring managers who are waiting outside a thumbs up, then they'll come in. Otherwise, we'll call it and we'll let you go on your way. And that stressed me out like crazy.
Yeah, that sounds stressful.
Yeah, it was terrible. But
it sounds like come into this room. If we think you're cool enough after we spend an amount of time with you, then we'll look to our cool crew back there and then give them a thumbs up. That sounds like a very high stress environment to interview somebody in. That's interesting.
Yeah, it didn't start off on the best foot. It did turn around really quickly though. So like I mentioned that, I started learning HTML in fourth grade when they brought someone into my rural elementary school to give a quick, lunchtime course for anyone who's interested.
Did you go to Blue Jay?
No, I went to Dunock.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's not even a school anymore.
No. My parents, so we lived at Cultus Lake. So we lived at a lake, way out there. And my parents moved back to Abbotsford. And the local school, I can't remember the name of it, was full. And so I had to go to this tiny little farm
shack
with 120. Yeah, it was literally a shack. It was like one big room. Not quite, but it was like there's like less than 100 students at some point. I think it was 120 on average. It was tiny. Everyone was a farm boy. So it was cool though. It was good. Good sense of community there.
Yeah, of course. So what were we talking about? Your interview process, I think.
Oh yeah. Anyways, the interview turned around really quick. When we kind of bonded over that. Like I found out like, oh, this one guy also, had been learning HTML and that's what kind of got him interested. We joked about, like for me, the thing that got me stoked on it is I could create these red background plain HTML page that said, warning, site seized by the FBI. And I'm Canadian. There's no FBI here.
Right.
And I did that and loaded up my dad's work laptop. And I thought it was the funniest thing. He was super upset, but I thought it was funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's elegant. That's beauty. I love that. Especially with the old man, because they never know how to operate computers. There's this like ongoing thing, or not anymore because I don't live at my dad's house, but throughout my life, up until I was 26, I lived at home. And so I spent a lot of time on computers. Like I was always on computers, playing games at first, then doing programming. And there was like, no matter what, if something ever happened to his computer, didn't matter what, printer doesn't work, icon is not where I remember it, it's my fault. Somehow it was me. And I don't even use this from the time I was like, I don't know, 17, probably even 16 to 25. I had my own computer. I didn't touch his computer. And it was always like something is wrong. He kind of walks in with this angry / shameful, not really sure what it was, look into my room. And he's like, something's wrong with my computer. What'd you do to it? And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, you're literally asking me to come fix it. And you're asking me what I did wrong with it. And this has happened hundreds of times. What is happening in your head?
Honestly, it sounds like we had this exact same upbringing. The exact same. Like, his work provided him a laptop. There was something wrong with it. It was my fault.
Yeah.
It was just always, oh.
And you're the one who fixes it, right?
Yeah.
Like, but it's your fault that it's not working. Right.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Hilarious.
So
yeah, your small little school, jokes on your dad. Let's get back to the interview. I remember we were talking about the SAP. We were talking about the SAP interview at some point.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So the SAP interview, I didn't realize how intense technical coding-based interviews were. I had no idea. I had no idea like how serious people, like Silicon Valley was kind of like just a twinkling on the horizon. Like, I'd heard of it, but I didn't think that was like, it was as big as it could have, or it actually was. And so anyway, they started grilling me, and I just worked through the problems with them, and they were super like receptive to providing feedback and letting me bounce ideas off them. And
like you were working through the problem together, sort of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
100%. And that's honestly one of the things that SAP did very well is interviewing. Their interviews and the way they trained us up to interview new people was, I think it was one of the best experiences, at least in Vancouver, for technical interviewing.
So what about the data? You mentioned a difficult interview process. So data structures and algorithms, was that was a big portion, and how well did you know those things?
Not like, I knew the basics, right? Like I could code out a simple linked list. I could explain how hash tables work. But honestly, like, this is stuff I hadn't touched in a couple of years. Because like, as everyone knows, like, for the most part, once you leave university, you're not implementing a linked list typically, or you're not implementing a hash table.
Never.
Yeah. Right. There are libraries for that.
Yeah.
Right. I've been writing C# and Java for the last, year and a half, 2 years. It's all provided for me.
Yeah.
But they were, so it was pretty brutal. I think of the 3 questions they asked me, I solved one completely. One of them was pretty much there, and they said, okay, let's just, you pretty much got it. Let's move on to the next one. And the last one was really difficult. And it was, had to do a whole bunch with the parallel synchronous programming. And I conceptually could explain it, but I couldn't do it on the whiteboard. But, it worked out. The managers came in, and they asked me a bunch of behavioral questions, which I think I answered not the way that they wanted me to for some of them, and but I argued my point of view.
What kind of behavioral questions?
The one that I remember, like, this is a while ago now, but the one that I remember specifically was, you have the choice between 2 teams. One team is always under promises, but hits their deadlines. And the other team is super ambitious. They're always learning more. They're always pushing hard. They overcommit, and they often under deliver, or they have to pull crazy hours to make it happen. And okay, the way I explained it there, maybe it was a little more dramatic than the way they explained it, or they asked the question, but I picked that the team that under promises. And I said that because being accurate is more important than over delivering on stuff that other teams and people and customers and marketing and sales, whoever, might not be prepared for.
Yeah. I don't know how I would answer that either. Because really the question, the way I see it is, are you a person who is, accountable, and you don't kind of overhype products, you meet deadlines, you don't overhype products, you deliver exactly what is expected, as opposed to being a maniac who's just driven by like get new stuff, make it better, and you're almost erratic, but you probably have better stuff, but sometimes it doesn't deliver, so you're probably going to upset some people. Sometimes you're going to make people really happy. It's kind of like gambler or reliable. That's sort of the question. I don't know which one I would have chosen either, to be honest. I would have taken the reliable side also, because you'd think from a company perspective that the thing that they would want most, just like what we were talking about before we started the podcast. You said they have a whole new kind of PR thing about you not saying anything to get people's hopes up about products that may not be created. Like that's the same kind of line, the same kind of vein there. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. I like, and the thing is for me is like I'm a bit of a quick start. Like I have an idea and I start jumping, I start building it, right? And I don't think about design or I don't flesh out markets. And that's like a flaw, but also it's part of what keeps me excited about what I do.
Yeah, you gotta do that.
Yeah. So like for me that was a tough question to answer, but I think my argument of like why it's important to be to be able to set manageable, like measurable goals and that's better than having a team that consistently, like maybe even consistently hits their massive deadlines but burns out.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the only question they asked you?
Oh no, they asked me a bunch more. We talked for a solid hour.
Oh, okay. Lots of stuff then.
Yeah, I can't remember a lot of it there.
This is all at one go, right? Technical tests and then behavioral questions, and all in like one session.
Yeah, it was about 2.5 hours total that we spent chatting.
Okay.
So once you did get the job at SAP, what sort of things were you working on? What was your like? You didn't start in QA, obviously, like you did the previous job. So that's great. I think that's usually where people start when they're just getting started. They don't have a lot of experience. They start in QA. That's pretty common. Then work their way up. So what were the things you were working on?
So I got they were hiring a ton of people, and I joined what was called, I think, Cloud for Analytics, but now it's called SAP Analytics Cloud, and it's a giant flexible analytics product that hooks into their proprietary in-memory database called HANA. And it was basically like a competitor to like, Power BI or Tableau. And the stuff that I was working on in particular, like this is kind of weird. This is going to sound super weird. The database itself had a small application server in it. And that application server ran essentially a homegrown version of Node, but like the original version of Node.js, like super old.
Okay.
And so it didn't have things like, concurrency. There was no ability to do anything in parallel. You had to have, there was a separate C program that was interfaced with a Java applet that also ran, that would trigger like jobs asynchronously. And so like that's kind of where I started. And I started, pretty heavily on the product side of that. I built things like my team built a ability to comment on data points that would flow throughout your entire application. So if you had an intersection of data, you could leave a comment that applies to, the sales for, these sections of stores for, this province in Canada. And it was, it was pretty cool stuff, pretty complex. It was very complex.
Yeah, I would think, because this is pretty much like SAP largely is a product that has a set of business tools, and it's a lot of like analytics for businesses, right? Reports and analytics.
I mean, their main go-to thing is enterprise resource planning, like ERP. And that's based out of their German headquarters. And so Vancouver was kind of like this was like I said, it was a greenfield project. And I started, there was only a couple hundred people working on it when I joined. When I left, I think it was over 1,300 people. Wow. There's a lot of people, a lot of devs, a lot of, the product people, marketing.
What is that, a 2-year period or something you were there?
I was there almost 4.
So, almost 4, okay.
Yeah.
That's quite a long time. Pretty aggressive still to go from 100 employees to 1,300 in 4 years. That's a lot of hiring.
Yeah, no, it was, I mean, the cool thing is because SAP has this massive customer base that are using tools that we're building on top of. This product kind of slipped right on top of that and was immediately useful to them. And so like, all of a sudden, as soon as it was ready to be sold, people who are selling, they're re-upping, packages with enterprise Fortune 500 companies. And they're like, oh yeah, like we're going to, we want to sell you some of this too, because it's pretty cool. And it'll, bring all your analytics into one spot, and, it'll automatically forecast and do predictive analytics and, crazy stuff that's way beyond, my education and experience. But like, it was pretty fancy.
So you enjoyed your time at SAP, is what you're saying?
For the most part. The big, big enterprise stuff kind of got to me over time. So after about a year and a bit, my team moved from like application development into infrastructure, and more like building the platform that it was running on, which is where I really started to, kind of get traction and pushing for things that I enjoyed. What I found is, SAP was a phenomenal place to work, to advance my career, to learn, and to be able to specialize into a pretty deep area. At the same time, it's a big company. There's a lot of politics. You're working on a product that is being bought and sold by people who aren't actually using those products, right? People buy the product or the licenses, and then they instruct people who work for them to use it.
The business people.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, I don't know if you've ever used like an SAP product or any kind of ERP data entry level product, but they're generally not great.
I've used them. I had a job once upon a time, and they used SAP products. And yeah, I would say not bad, but also not good. Mm-hmm. That's how I would describe it. It did the job. But yeah, like everybody in IT was not using them because that was the software that they wanted to use. It was because the business people in the company decided that SAP was the thing that they were going to purchase.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that made me not resent the product I was working on, but I felt like for me, I'm a very product oriented engineer. Even though I work in developer experience kind of stuff, I want to build a product that people love and that solves, that every day they look forward to using it. It makes their life better. And they know, if they had to do it all over again, they pick this product. And as I progressed and as the product grew at SAP, I felt that it wasn't a place for me anymore to get that internal satisfaction I needed.
You sound like
proud of what you're working on, right?
Exactly.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, you sound like a creative person, which I think deep down all devs are. Like that's the reason you start programming. It's because you're creative. You're a geek who likes to build stuff and play around and like do stuff. Yeah. A place like SAP or any big company, likely, I'm guessing. I don't know, but I'm guessing, will sort of it's going to dwindle that creativity over time, because you're just going to get pushed to product after product. Eventually maybe you got hired there at the start where you were working on things that you wanted to work on, but very likely over time, if the company is growing, you're just going to get moved to group A or group B and work on product C. And you're just you're like a code monkey, and that does not sound fun.
Exactly. I mean, you don't get any influence on the product direction. Talking to customers was painful. Yeah, I mean,
that wouldn't be fun. I very much dislike customer service.
Yeah. I mean, I worked at Future Shop for a year in university. That was
painful.
It was a motivational point to not do that for my
You're
life.
Way to look at the positive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. For me, like I don't know. I grew up, my family and everyone's like, "Oh, you get a job at a big company, like the goals like Microsoft and Google,
climb the ladder."
Yeah, and like I got a job at SAP, and that was a huge break for me. I thought this was that was the career trajectory. Now it's just big enterprises, Fortune 100 companies.
I remember hearing that you worked there when I was at UFE. I think you had maybe been working there for a year, and I was in my last year. I think it was like my last semester, and I heard you were working there. I was like, damn, I'm jealous. Like, wow. I was much more maybe even more amazed than I am now that you're working at DigitalOcean even. I don't know. I was very amazed, but that's because you're in school and all you want is a job. You're broke. You're just like, please, we'll work for anything. But yeah, that was cool. That's it seems like it would have been a big break for you for sure.
You know what? It definitely was. Like, I moved, first of all, I moved away from Abbotsford. Like, I moved into a big city, which I'd never been exposed to. I didn't spend much time in the city before then. And like, all of a sudden, there's so many more people around you, so many more cultures to experience. Like, Vancouver is quite diverse. And that was like just eye-opening. It was awesome. I loved it. Oh, so good.
So after SAP then, how did this DigitalOcean thing come about?
So yeah, I mean, it was an interesting experience. So I always considered DigitalOcean to be a pipe dream. I didn't think I would ever be qualified to work there. They're a cloud. They do lots of low-level stuff, but they were slowly breaking into like managed services. Like, they recently launched their Kubernetes as a service, and they had managed databases. I was super into Kubernetes, and I was talking about it a bit on like Twitter and online. I'd written a blog post about it, which is
I don't even really know that much about Kubernetes. Could you tell us about it? I know a bit, but it would be helpful if you could describe it.
The way I describe it, I mean, if you're going to describe it for like an application developer, it's a way to get your app in front of, or to host your app and have it be, automatically always up, to be able to scale it, up and vertically, or sorry, horizontally and vertically, to handle when it crashes and automatically bring it back up. To do all these different things that have to do with hosting. That being said, it's immensely complex, and I think the general sentiment that you probably don't need Kubernetes is true for most people, for most businesses. So I don't really know how to. It basically turns your application into like farm animals that are just they're here for a little bit and then they're not, and new farm animals come, but your application's always there.
Interesting.
Bad way of putting it too.
I don't understand.
Is it? I'll be honest. I don't understand it either. But in my mind, it's basically I don't know if it's complicated or not, but a way to basically scale up and down your application, right? So if I have like one person using my application, and then 1,000 people come, it will just ramp up whatever it's doing to make that work. That's all close?
Kind of. That's like almost a platform feature on top of it.
Okay.
There is auto scaling capabilities to it, but generally that's not like a default behavior. I guess what it is if you take a series of computers and you set them up as a cluster, then the Kubernetes is the system that runs on top of all of those combined, and it'll automatically put your application across these machines and scale them to as many instances as you need.
Oh, I see.
And wire in things like your database connections and wire up your configurations for you, and then it'll reconcile it. It goes over and over and it checks. It says, hey, like, is this app still in the situation or in the what I expect of it? Does it still look like it should? And if it doesn't, then it spins up a new one and shuts that one down.
So it's like real-time testing, real-time like load balancing, and so real-time testing, it'll take action on the failed tests if it fails by restarting a system, which is the cause of a lot of problems. It's just like restart the system, it'll probably start working, and then scaling up to however many things you need, and it does everything automatically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe not automatic. Yes, automatically. What you do is you say, here's what I expect to see. And then it will check over and over to make sure that is still true. And if it's not, then it'll start doing things to try and make it true.
Okay. Seems like, real-time testing with some kind of a like intelligent behavior behind the testing, like intelligent action taking. Sounds cool.
Yeah, no, it's super fancy. I just did it, an atrocious way of explaining it, but
to be honest, I did not understand after you finished explaining it, but now I feel like I have a better idea.
We got there in the end.
Yeah, we got there in the end.
All right, I'll take that as a small win.
So now what were we talking about? How you started working at DigitalOcean? Are they yet?
Yeah. I had a recruiter reach out to me. Had seen some
Classic
stuff.
recruiter again.
Yeah, yeah. But he actually read my my LinkedIn. They like, you know, he'd seen my blog posts about Kubernetes, and he said, "Hey, like, you look like you might be a good fit for our Kubernetes team. Do you want to have a chat?" And of course, for me, I'm like freaking out.
Hell yeah!
This is the best thing that's happened to me this year.
Calm down, John. Calm down.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I'm sitting there, you know, I'm actually at SAP in a meeting room, taking a call with this guy. And I'm just like, okay, take a breath, you know, and I
don't sound like a dipshit.
Yeah, right. Don't sound like a fanboy too, right?
Yeah.
Like, anyway, I came off as a fanboy. You know, he realized pretty quickly that yes, I was interested in Kubernetes, but I didn't have the experience for this position. And he pulled the, you know, your standard recruiter, hey, like, you know, I don't think you're a fit for this position, but tell you what, like, I'll keep your email. Like, I think you'd be a good addition to the team. Let me keep your email, and then I'll get back to you if we have anything that pops up, right?
So this is a recruiter that works for DigitalOcean, not some random recruiter.
Yeah, no, actually, like, a full employee.
Okay.
And I thought that was, you know, for me, like, my experience, like, I interviewed with Microsoft like 4 or 5 months earlier, and similar situation, much worse, but similar situation. And I was like, okay, well, that's it. Like, he's not going to get back to me. I'm not a good fit. And sure enough, 3 months later, I was backpacking with my now fiance in Portugal. And I got an email saying, hey, let's chat. We have a team that I think you'd be good on. And I told him, I said, yeah, like, I'm backpacking right now, but, you know, I'll be back in a week and a half. Can we do that? And so he actually didn't end up interviewing me. He passed me to another recruiter who was part of this team. And that's when they interviewed me to start working on what would become DigitalOcean's platform as a service. And that came out of, yeah.
Can you tell us about that? Guys, I don't really understand that either, the platform as a service thing. Because I saw you post about it on LinkedIn, and I was wondering, because I'm a very like basic DigitalOcean user. Like, I use their hosting, their DigitalOcean spaces. That's pretty much all I use. I don't use any of the other products. So what is this thing all about?
So essentially the idea behind the platform as a service, or in this case, app platform, which is the product that I work on, is the idea of, you know, we obfuscate and automate all of the difficult parts, the operations section of hosting your application. So like, you know, with your droplet, if you want to host, you know, like, let's say, you know, if you want to host a Vue.js app, just a static app on a droplet, you need to set up the droplet. You need to, you know, log into it with SSH. You need to find a way to get your code there. You need to get all the dependencies there. You know, maybe install Node. You might need to put you might host it using the Node.js HTTP server, or you might do something like, you know, set up a Caddy server or an Nginx server, or you might use a DigitalOcean load balancer. But the point is that you're now responsible to keep this machine up to date, to secure it, to lock it down. When you want to deploy a new version of your app, you have to, you know, pull the code from GitHub or upload it, you know, somehow. It's a lot of work. It's almost an entirely separate profession. And
yeah, for sure.
Right.
There's a lot of things that you need to know for sure. Yeah.
And then if that app crashes, you know, what happens? Like, you have to go in there and manually figure out why, start it back up. You know, you might be in the middle of the night and your customers might not be able to access it, but you're sleeping.
Has happened to me.
Yeah. Right. It happened to me too. Like, I briefly ran a site that was getting some traffic, and or I should say, it was more of an app. And it went down, and I woke up to a bunch of, you know, phone calls and stuff, and it was just like not fun. So platform as a service basically takes all of that stuff and does it for you. So if, for example, for, you know, app platform, you hook up your GitHub account and you point at the repository where your code lives. And from there, we create a service, or maybe a static site, or a worker. You can attach a database to it. And then what we do is we check out your code. We scan it. We automatically detect what language it is, what framework you're using. And then we build it into a Docker container or Docker image. And then using that, we deploy that and we'll start automatically monitoring it. We'll keep it up. So if there's, let's say there's a small memory leak and your app crashes every 6 hours, while you're trying to figure out how to fix that, we'll just spin up another copy of it and you're good to go. Like your app is always up.
That sounds amazing.
It's pretty, like, I'm stoked on it. Like for me, like I'm super passionate about, the entrepreneurial community, especially indie developers. And this is the tool that I think that is needed right now for people who are building applications.
Yeah, I think you described it perfectly. There's a lot of things that you need to know when you go to launch a website, and depending on what framework, there's different things. Do I use Nginx? Do I use GUnicorn? Do I use systemd? Do I use, there's so many do I use questions. How do I use Django typically. So you guys have great documentation on Django. So I usually just follow the docs and I can get there. But a lot of these things I'm doing, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just like, okay, next step. Okay, next step. Something goes wrong. It's like, I don't even, yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things you need to know. This almost sounds like a fairy tale the way you're describing it, to be honest, because it sounds like it's just going to magically do it for you, which I don't know. I'm thinking about all the things you do. It seems like that would be, you'd need an intelligent person to be able to do those. How the hell is software going to be able to do that? But if you tell me it's possible, I mean, it sounds very interesting.
I mean, and that's the great part is that, we have, the team I work on, they inspire me every single day. Some of the guys I work on, the way they've mentored me in my growth into this building this platform has been incredible. But they have so much experience with operation stuff, with distributed systems, stuff that no app developer or business should have to worry about, in my opinion. If you know that, oh, it's, Black Friday is coming up and we're going to get, 10 times the traffic going to, app platform, the app dashboard and clicking the plus button to spin up a couple more instances. It should be that easy. You shouldn't have to spin up servers and deploy images to them and then upload your code and start them up and then make sure there's a load balancer, and then have to worry about, oh, now we have to update our TLS certificate to show, to handle all these servers.
Right.
You shouldn't have to do that as an app developer.
Yeah, you should be focused on the product.
Exactly. Focus on the product, focus on your users.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that sounds like a fairy tale, but it sounds like awesome. I'm going to, I'm building a course right now where I'm going to deploy a real-time chat website using sockets and things. And I'm going to use, I use DigitalOcean to host it. I always use DigitalOcean. And when I go to show people how to deploy, usually I go through everything with them on DigitalOcean. I'm like, okay, this is how you create a droplet. This is how you install the Ubuntu, or however you say it, Ubuntu system.
Yeah,
whatever. This is how you do that. These are the services that you need to install to host the Django application. This is the database you have to use. Here we have to do some special stuff because we got to install Postgres instead of SQLite and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But now, you're telling me that this what'd you call it again? Application as a service?
Platform.
Platform.
PaaS. Platform as a service.
Platform as a service.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to probably look into that because it sounds like it would be pretty great. So that would, I could do that with all the things I just told you, Django website, host static files with DigitalOcean. What else do you need? We need Daphne for the sockets, Postgres database. I could just go to your service and say, I need these things, do it.
100%. I mean, so what you do is you log in, point to the repository, your GitHub repository, and then we ask you some more questions like, hey, do you want to add a database? And you can add a database. We'll automatically wire the credentials in with an environment variable, something called bindable variables. And so it automatically, will say, here's your connection string for connecting to your Postgres server. You can also link in your other production managed databases that DigitalOcean offers. And then, we support WebSockets. Click the up button. It'll check your code out, scan it, build it. Maybe if there's some special needs of your app, then you can customize those. If it's extremely custom, then you can deploy a Docker file instead. We just, next thing you know, you're, off to the races. Your app's hosted. It's scalable. It can scale vertically and horizontally.
Sounds
if it
cool.
crashes, we'll bring it back up.
Sounds really cool. Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, I'm getting some feedback from one of you.
That's me. There is someone outside my apartment door vacuuming.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that's great timing.
You mentioned earlier that you wrote a blog and was it the recruiter at DigitalOcean read your blog, I think. So is blogging like a thing that you do regularly? And also, what about talks? Like, do you think blogging and talks are something that all software developers should do? Did that help you get your job in your career?
Um, so I do blogging terribly. Like I try to get into blogging and then I do a couple posts and then I fall out of it and then I delete my blog and write a new one every 2 to 3 years. Like that's just how
Just
it
how it
goes.
goes.
Yeah, I don't particularly like writing, but I do like sharing and teaching. And so, for me, I've done a couple meetup talks. I've done a couple, I shouldn't say there weren't real conferences, but they were like internal conferences at SAP. So, you have a couple thousand people there. I had a few times where I talked about Docker and I talked about, what is containerization under the hood. And I felt like while they may not have directly contributed to me getting a job or getting a job at TO, they definitely helped me with that experience check mark on my resume, and also the ability to just have a conversation with someone, dumb stuff down, or bring it back up, bring it up to a technical level, to speak well. That's an attractive skill that or it's a core, I like to call them core competency, right? Being able to talk and get through things in a public setting.
For sure, public speaking is a very valuable skill. Definitely.
Yeah. Like I'm not the best at it by any means, as you can tell, but I can get up on stage and I can get it done. So
yeah, that's all you need. So you don't think that, like, I guess what you did say was that, yes, you think that they probably helped you in your career, but you don't really like to do them.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like to think of myself as someone who would be like a regular blogger, but I don't enjoy the process.
Yeah. I don't like writing either. I very much dislike blog writing. It's something that I should do, obviously, as an online person, but I despise writing. Actually, I find it like just tedious and like boring, and I don't know. I like video. Video's fine. It's unscripted or it's scripted-ish. Depending on how you do it. But so you said you're thinking about starting some online education thing. You said.
I've been tossing the idea for a while. I did some Twitch streaming a while back, building, some little, fun toys. And I really enjoyed that, even though I only got like 2 or 3 people to join my stream and ask me questions. It was a lot of fun, and people have, seen the recordings, and, they've reached out to me and thought that was pretty cool. I think, I've been kind of figuring that I might try and do that a little bit more in the future. That being said, I'm not going to commit to anything right now.
You know what I would do if I was you and I worked at DigitalOcean? So DigitalOcean, probably the thing I like most about them is their documentation. Like, it's so easy. Like I said, I have no server-side experience. Well, I only do because of me working on my own stuff and figuring it out. But like the first time I deployed a website, I had no server-side experience, and I just followed their document like a monkey, and I got it to work. So and it's always been like that with every document I've ever read with DigitalOcean, which is awesome. But I was always thinking, what if they had video documentation? What if at the bottom of every one of their little documents, they had like a video where Jon takes you through the document and says like, be careful about this, watch out for that. And I think that would be like a really valuable thing for them to have. So I don't know. That's what I would do if I was at DigitalOcean anyway. I would definitely bring that up to them.
That's a great idea. And we've done a lot more video stuff as of late. Like we have,
but it's usually not super technical. I've seen some of them. It's like the stuff you see Google doing where they're like, check out this new product.
Yeah.
Bibbidi boobidi ba. It's not like, and as a developer, I'm like, okay, that doesn't help me, but sure.
You bring up a good point. I don't know why we don't do that.
It's gotta be time. It's gotta be time. You gotta find the right guy to do it. There's a lot of documents. It takes a long time.
They have the right guy to do it.
Well, they have the right guy to do it. Sorry, now they do.
I have to do my full day job too. But I think one thing that kind of jumps to my head that might be one of the reasons why we haven't started adding stuff like that thus far is that like we do monitor all of the tutorials, and so if there's a new version of Ubuntu, then we have to update so that there's a version for the next version. So like yes, there's a version for 14.04 of Ubuntu, but there's also a 20.04 version, and so we have to. The problem with the videos, you have to re-record the whole thing. I would
Not necessarily. You know the version dependent parts. You could say you could easily take the video and just re-record a portion of it, the parts that matter, and because chances are not everything is going to change. It's going to be like that one 2-minute span or whatever, and you could, as long as you are thoughtful about the way you record the video, it could be done.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll bring it up. I'll ask some of our technical writers and
I don't know. I mean, that's
guys.
just. I mean, I'm a guy who sits and does that all day, so obviously that's the thing that I thought of. But yeah, cool.
No, I agree with you though. I also I love video content. Like that's how I learn things. Is I grab a course and I learn it, and then I dive into the technical docs if I need to.
On your Twitter, it says that you are a mod for a blog named what is it? Mega Maker.
Mega Makers.
Mega Maker. What is that?
So I've been a member. It's a community. It's a private entrepreneurial community. It was created.
You seem excited about it.
I love it. It's so good. So like I'm an entrepreneur at heart. It's one of the reasons why I am excelling and I'm so happy to work at Geo on the product that I'm working on is that we're helping entrepreneurs. But so there's this guy Justin Jackson who lives up in Vernon, British Columbia. And he started this community of private makers. When I joined, it was like you paid $100, you got into a Slack channel and a forum, and you could chat with each other and with him, and kind of talk about building your indie business. And so yeah, so I've been a member for like 4 years now, and I've helped out with a whole bunch of technical stuff as well as marketing ideas, all this other stuff for people who are trying to get their side business off the ground. And so like I became a mod a couple years ago, and so there's me and there's Helen and then there's Justin. That's the three people who kind of make sure it keeps running.
So it's like who owns it?
Justin.
Justin does. So you do this for free because you're a nice guy.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't do a whole lot. Like mostly it's just what I just consider chatting with my friends.
Right.
But
so
occasionally
it's a website for entrepreneurs to get advice from successful entrepreneurs, I guess.
Yeah, there are some very successful people in there. So, but it's it's a lot like it's a community. It's not like it's not like a typical public entrepreneurial community where you're talking about all this. It's all about how do I get this going? It's like like I'm struggling today with procrastination, and someone might we might talk about that, or COVID's really thrown me into a bit of a dip, and I'm just not feeling it, or it's affected my business, or hey, I'm going to try and pivot so that I can survive this pandemic. What do you guys think about this? And people give feedback. And we have marketing experts, and we have lots of software developers, and we have salespeople, and like every walk of life. If you're a digital indie entrepreneur, like we have someone in there that does that.
Interesting. Very interesting. Didn't think that kind of thing existed, or I thought that kind of thing would exist at like a place like Reddit or something like that. So it's just like a little community where really you guys are just, it sounds like you're just friends. Like really, you're just a bunch of people who are chatting about their difficulties.
Yeah, it's like 400 or 500 people. We hang out. If you have problems, if there's a channel called Screaming, and if you want to rant about something, then you can do that.
Oh, it's good. Forums, Discord, and there's a wiki. It looks like.
We have something called Playgroup. It's a forum created by one of the Mega Makers, and we also have a Slack channel.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah,
interesting. How did you find this place?
It didn't exist when I started following Justin on Twitter. So when I was at university, one of my friends had said, "Hey, you should check this guy out. He's from Vernon, and he just made, I think it was like $20,000 as a side hustle, and he posted all the numbers and how he did it. And I thought that was the coolest thing.
Okay.
And so I started following him. Then he says, "Hey guys, I'm gonna start this community," and I was like, "I don't have $100, but I could probably find $100." And yeah, that's how it all started.
Cool. All right. So what after talking about all of this, all of your job kind of experiences, what sort of tips would you give, let's say, people in university or high school, or it doesn't even matter actually, even out of there, trying to get a job? What are the things that you would say are the most valuable that will help you get that job?
I think that to be successful as a software developer, you don't need to have a degree. It helps a lot, but you don't. It's not like required. I think the best thing you can do is get experience. Is to keep the mindset that you always have to be learning. I think if you are going to university, especially university in Canada, take advantage of the co-op program. I use that. It was amazing for me to get my start. And at SAP, we hired, I think, 70 to 80 or more co-op students every like 6 or 7 months. And like that real world experience is so great. If you can get in on that, that's fantastic. But yeah,
So that's it.
that's it. I mean, the best thing I can say is, find a direction, go in that direction. And if it's not for you, then change. Like for me, I started going into like front end app level development. And I realized when I hit SAP that I wanted to go into more operations, platform based stuff. And I switched, and I found that who knows what's going to happen in the future. I might switch to something else, but find a direction, work towards it. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
What would you say that your dream job is? I know you're a DigitalOcean fanboy, so you're probably feeling pretty good right now. But like maybe not even working for a person or a place. What is the thing that you would want to do above all else if you could do that thing?
Well, I mean, you hit it pretty close to the head. This is my dream job right now, what I have. And that is pretty cool, but it's also a little scary because I just turned 30.
Yeah.
Now what? Yeah. The future, I'm not sure what it holds for me just yet. I've considered, down the road, maybe I'll do some consulting, maybe a startup. I do I do find the marketing, the business side of running a small company super interesting and enjoyable. When I joined that startup way back as my first real job, it exposed me to a lot of that, and I really enjoyed being a part of that stuff.
Just like the hustle of a small company getting going, the business stuff, trying to make money, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then when you have customers, the rawness of your relationship with them, like being able to say like, "Hey, like, what do you think? Like, oh, this isn't working for you. Let's adapt, right? Let's change." Right? At big enterprises or well-established large companies, that's not as much of a thing. It is, but it's you're not going to change a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm hearing the creative person in you come out again. It's like you have your dream job. It's great. They're a great company, but if you really look at the trajectory down the road, 10 years. If you're still doing the same stuff, probably what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take on something that's very difficult, very dynamic, and you just go and figure it out and build new stuff and build cool stuff. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly. 100%. So, and who knows what that technology will be, right? That we'll be working with, or what we'll need down there.
Yeah. Whatever the thing is that you think is cool and you want to work on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have some questions that people were asking on Twitter yesterday when I tweeted that I was going to talk to a DigitalOcean employee. So we could just quickly go through those if you don't mind. And then we got 5 minutes left as per my clock, and we can shut her down, say our goodbyes.
Sounds good. All right. Hit me.
All right. So I have a question from Frederick, and he says, Tell us about the work environment and what daily knowledge you require to do your job.
Okay, so the work environment at Dio, I think this varies from team to team pretty drastically, and pre-COVID times, whether you're working in an office or not. But for me, as a remote developer on a fully remote team, I wait for like I'm a morning person. I wake up around 6:30. I jump onto my computer after I have some breakfast and some coffee, and usually I throw a little hand wavy emoji in our Slack channel and say good morning, and then I'm off to the races. We have a weekly chat. Sometimes we do a stand up. We have regular retrospectives. A lot of the conversations, if I get blocked, if I have questions, if we need to, further expand on something, it's very much an ad hoc. We're very collaborative. We communicate regularly, but there's like no set meetings that are always there unless they're absolutely necessary, and they almost always have an agenda. So I have regular one-on-ones with my managers. It's as far as like my colleagues, they're extremely brilliant, smart people. They probably suffer from imposter syndrome the same way I do. We collaborate, we work together. There's a couple of our more senior than me, engineers who I can reach out to, and they have no problem jumping on a call and being like, yeah, like let's talk this problem through, or here's what I meant, in that code review.
Cool.
So yeah,
sounds
cool.
Nice.
It's quite supportive.
Yeah, it sounds nice. Like you're playing right into the fairy tale that I had imagined about DigitalOcean.
Perfect work environment.
Yeah.
I mean, so I've only been here.
Can you tell us a bad thing?
A bad thing. I didn't prepare any bad things.
Oh.
Okay, so a bad thing.
You could just make one up and make us feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or make all the people listening who are at jobs they hate feel better.
Yeah.
The bad thing is that I guess because we're remote, you don't get to have that random water cooler with people outside of your team as often. Like, there's a beer channel, there's a cycling channel, there's all these other things that were super fun, to hang out in, but you really don't get to know someone. And especially with like the pandemic, like typically we'd meet up occasionally as a team, but with the pandemic, that's not a thing anymore. Like last year we had something called Shark Week. We went to Disneyland for a week, the whole company.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Wow.
So the downside is that you don't get as much of that. Like, at SAP we had clubs that I played ping pong regularly with colleagues from other organizations within the company. That was cool. But like I find that being full remote, you don't get as much exposure to external teams, to people who you have no reason to talk to from a business perspective.
Right. Yeah. There's really no way around that either. Like I don't see a solution to that. I've seen some of these awkward like things that companies try and do where they try and like do these remote hangouts.
Yeah.
It looks terrible. It just looks no.
Yeah. No, I mean, like we have like this thing, like, every Friday at like 2 p.m. PST, which is 5 p.m. where the bulk of the company is located. They have like an automatic beer Google Hangout that, you have a beer hangout.
That wouldn't be as bad, have a beer. But the things I saw were like, let's, I don't know, play this weird game. And there's like 30 people in there. Like it just is.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah. No, that sounds awkward.
Yeah, it sounds very awkward. Okay, next question from Justin Mitchell. He's the owner of codingforentrepreneurs.com. He teaches Django. He's actually the guy that I learned Django from. Great guy. I just talked on his podcast actually last week on Friday. He says managed serverless like GCP and Cloud Run. So I'm guessing he's saying when is serverless coming, just like GCP Cloud Run has.
Oh man, I wish I knew. I mean, internally, we're very aware of serverless. A lot of us are excited about it. But as a company, that's not a question I can answer that I have insights into right now. So
okay,
you'll just have to hold on in that one, Justin. I'm sorry, I can't give more details.
Justin, asking the hard questions.
Those are the hard-hitting questions, yeah.
So this one is again from Frederick, and he's a guy I also had on my podcast before, and he works on his job over the last, I don't know, year. I think it was year or two. Year, I think, has been working on an app that was really, really, really terrible. Had lots of legacy systems, and him and his team brought it back to life, and yeah, brought life back into this app and really, really improved it. So his question is, what software methodologies do they use to migrate legacy systems? And then I would ask on top of that, me personally, is does DigitalOcean even have legacy systems? Because it's a fairly new company.
Yeah. I mean, well, we're not that new. I think 2013.
That's pretty new.
Yeah, okay, it's fairly new.
Like if you look at any of like the others, like Bluehost or whatever, like any of these other hosting providers, they're quite old. Like you look at even their websites and they look like they're from 1995.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's you're not wrong. So okay, when I joined DO, I joined what was a greenfield project again. So
what is a greenfield project?
It's a project where basically it's all green fields. We're creating it from scratch. And so I haven't worked with any of our legacy systems. DigitalOcean does have legacy systems. They have things there, we're moving away from, like we have a Ruby monolith at the core of everything, and it's slowly being broken down to microsystems or microservices.
So you guys used Ruby?
Yeah. They used the core of it was, or the core of, I guess, the cloud dashboard is Ruby. And a lot of the underlying services were all just one big monolith. We moved things to Go and microservices, and we built out. I guess the way that you deal with it is you look at what you need to do in the problem areas that you're experiencing in your current legacy system, and then start branching out or start breaking those out as easily as you can, as simply as you can. Like one of the DO core values is simplicity. And so making things simple and easy to use, which sometimes makes things more complex.
I think they do a good job. I think DigitalOcean is a pretty simple product to use. It's pretty intuitive. Like you could log into the dashboard and you can pretty much just click around and you generally will figure out what to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that first question, by the way, I messed up. It wasn't from Frederick. It was from a guy whose Twitter handle is Android Dev Notes. Great guy. Okay. But I think I got one more question here. Shall we expect more Oktoberfest events like from DigitalOcean? I didn't even know they did a Hacktoberfest.
Oh man, Hacktoberfest is amazing. You get a free T-shirt.
Wow.
So or if you don't want a free T-shirt, we'll plant a tree.
Where do I sign up?
I think hacktoberfest.com.
So to answer the question, yes, you will be doing more of these things.
So so Hacktoberfest is not going away. We're trying to, or we are working with more and more maintainers of open source repositories. We want to, continue to contribute in a very positive way to the open source community. We are going to be doing more events. In fact, one event that I'm going to plug right now is our Deploy conference. So November 10th and 11th, we're having a 24-hour conference. You can find out more by going to do.co/deploy. There will be a ton of content on how we built App Platform, and a lot of different tutorials and other introductions to different DO products and cool things, as well as people from outside of DO as well. So definitely check that out.
Are you going to be compensated for that shameless DigitalOcean plug?
No, but I'm gonna ask.
Of course. Oh, you got to ask. Of course. So, well, I'm out of questions. If you got any there, Rob?
No, I'm good. This is super interesting. I'll be honest, like I've never used DigitalOcean, but hearing you talk about it makes me want to use it and potentially move to work there. So
DigitalOcean is a great, if anybody is hosting anything or doing anything on the internet, DigitalOcean, I always recommend. It's just like, I really have nothing bad to say about them. Everybody who I've ever recommended DigitalOcean has never said anything bad about them. It really sounds like a fairy tale, like I've said many times throughout this podcast, but it really is a great product. And the thing that stands above it all for me is the documentation, because that's how I do my job. That's how all of us developers do our job. Mm-hmm. How are we going to figure out how to use a thing if there's nothing telling us how to use the thing? So
exactly. And you know what, like prior to me working here, I felt the same way, right? It's only gotten stronger since I joined, but prior to that, I've been a DigitalOcean user for pretty much since they became a company.
Awesome. Wow, that's a long time. I only
Yeah.
think I started in, I don't know, 2017 or something like that, I guess, when I had to host my website. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for coming on, John. It was a pleasure. It was great to catch up because, well, I don't know, we never really knew each other, although we were around each other.
It's true. We chatted a few times, I think, over the years, but like
Not
that was-
really. Yeah, it's this weird thing though. Like when I really thought about it, I'm like, I know John. Wait, no, I don't really, but I know John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. It's great to come on and chat. And yeah,
Enjoy your dream job.
so far it's been a dream. So cheesy.
Don't get bored. Try not to get bored. Keep it a
Oh.
dream job. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's the difficult task.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you later.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Cheers, John.